Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Today's episode is all about minerals, those spark plugs that our cells need to function properly. And my guest is a woman who is incredibly passionate about minerals. They are her life. And so she actually came from a career in the corporate world and, like so many people, found herself struggling physically, mentally, energetically. But instead of dragging herself through yet another day, this is a woman who went looking for answers and found them in the world of minerals. And these are not just any minerals. This is a really, really interesting approach to how we replace our minerals. So I'm going to let her tell you the story. I'm taking this product every single day. My parents take it every single day. Everybody I know who will sit down long enough to listen to me, it's become part of our foundation stack. But I'm going to let you make your own decision for yourself and hear it from Carolyn Allen herself. If I didn't mention it already, the company name is Beam Minerals. And if you want to learn more about Beam Minerals or you want to get your hands on some product, it's beamminerals.com, just like it sounds. And you can save 20% with discount code NAT20. So enjoy the episode. And also, on Instagram, Beam Minerals. They keep it simple. It's always Beam Minerals. So if you enjoy this episode, you know what to do. Hit share it with your friends or anybody that you know who you think will benefit from listening to this information. If you totally love the episode, please make sure to leave us a review. Obviously, the more stars, the better. But if you love the episode, make sure to leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to it on, because that's what allows people to find us. And if you're looking to connect with me, you know where to find me. natnidham.com is my website. That'll lead you to pretty much everywhere. But that will also be where you find out about BSP Community on Mighty Networks, which is my new intimate, small, fun community where we do amazing stuff. We do live Q&As. We do live Q&As with me and also with other experts. We do self-experiments, N of ones with innovative products. People get advanced access to podcasts, lots of great stuff there. But of course, if you're not a Mighty Networks person and you're still really kind of more of a Facebook person, by all means, there's the Optimizing Superhuman Performance group on Facebook. I hope to see you somewhere. And you, of course, know that you can find me on Instagram at Natalie Nidham. Thank you so much for being here. I truly, and from the bottom of my heart, absolutely appreciate you. Hey, folks, just a quick reminder that all of the information presented in this podcast is for information purposes only. No medical advice, no diagnosing, no treatments suggested here. Before you try anything that you hear about or learn about here, make sure that you check with your medical provider. A very warm welcome to you to the podcast, Caroline Allen. It's so wonderful to finally be sitting here and talking to you.
It's been a long time coming, and I'm really looking forward to having this conversation, Nat.
Yeah, me too. I'm feeling like my bucket needs to be filled today just with new knowledge, and I have a feeling you are the exact person I need to talk to about that. So, I mean, I think we met how long ago? Or was it last year at the biohacking conference, or was it before that? No, it was last year.
In Florida.
Yeah, it was last year because I remember getting some bottles of your products and giving them to my parents who were just starting with a PMF mat that I bought them at that show as well at that time. And my mom and dad, they've really come a long way over the years, but they're at the point now where if I tell them to do something, they'll do it. But yours is one of the few products that when they ran out, they called to tell me they ran out.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I find that so interesting.
Yeah, I find that me too, because there's lots of things I give them and then they run out and they don't tell me until, and I'm like, well, like I live in Canada, you live in Florida, like you need to tell me these things. But with your product, they made a point of saying, oh, we ran out of that water stuff.
Even my they're no longer teenagers. My sons, who are now 24 and 26, my son went to live in Spain. He's like, what am I going to do? I have to have the minerals, And when your sons, my older son went to a show with a whole bunch of people, like a week-long concert thing.
Oh, gosh.
After they all came back and all his friends came into the house and they were like, do you have any of those minerals?
Because we're so dehydrated. And
what they found is that because he took some with them at the place, and so they were all using them and they were finding that it really helped them as they
That's
were,
amazing.
who knows what they were taking, but
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well then let's back up the bus here and let people in on the conversation. So what we're really talking about is, yeah, and before we get to product, like obviously let's set the stage here. Let's talk about why you got into B minerals in the first place. Why are
yeah.
you in the business of electrolytes and trace minerals?
Yeah. Well, so if anybody had told me I would be here, not in a million years would I have said that I would be here talking to you as a mineral geek. I was in the tech world. I was kind of a top gun for hire, and I burned out of that. And at that time, I had flatlined adrenals. I
Mm,
had inflammation throughout my body, really badly in my mouth. I'd been working with several different dentists trying to solve the bone loss and the gingivitis, really deep pockets and receding gums that I was having in my mouth. Of course, we know that that's connected with the gut as well. And I had lots of gut problems. I had constant sinus infections,
yeah.
and I had headaches like almost every day. And
Yeah,
so
that's no way to live.
I was really in a bad state. And I was, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my health. I had been gluten-free for about 7 years because I did realize that I was definitely gluten intolerant, had been all my life, but I had been unable to get over the inflammation that was still racking my body, like to a healthy, good homeostasis. And my now business partner, Dan Howard, suggested that I try these plant-based minerals, and I started taking them. And about 2 months in, I went to my dentist and I had my teeth cleaned, and she looked in my mouth, and I remember her kind of going, "Whoa, what's different? The tissue in your mouth is no longer red and inflamed. There's not any bleeding from having your teeth cleaned. It all looks healthy and pink. What's going on?" And I just thought about it for a minute. I was like, "Oh my, I think it might be these minerals I'm taking." And she's like, "Well, keep taking them." So, and then a couple months later, about 4 months in, I'd been working with a naturopath for about 2 years, 2 to 3 years, trying to heal my adrenals.
Hmm.
And we tried all sorts of different things to no avail. The last time I had seen her, she wanted me to take hydrocortisone. And I was like,
Mm,
"No, I'm not getting on that bandwagon."
yeah.
And, but I had done the test, and she opened the book to look at the results, and she was kind of I saw surprise on her face, and she turned the thing around so I could see it. And this chart that usually I was like below flatline, I was like 1/3 of the way up with this natural sawtooth pattern. And she's like, "This is fantastic. Did you start taking that hydrocortisone?" I'm like, "No, I didn't. Wasn't going to do that. I think it might be these minerals."
Oh my God.
so
It's like a
so
city. It's like a show.
it really is kind of, I mean, it really, and I'm a pretty driven person. I was working at that time, I was doing some construction project management for my brother. I
Okay.
was, that's my background. Like when I was a kid, I used to do that. So when I was in my 20s, so I had kind of gone back that I was like in a transition process trying to get well.
Yeah.
And so over about 6 months, I really started to feel better. My energy came back. My skin started to look healthy. The bags under my eyes started going away. I mean, really, things really started to change. And I went to Dan. I'm like, and he was selling at that time, had a small company selling essential oils and these minerals. And I said, "Forget the essential oils." I said, "It's the minerals.
Yeah.
It's the minerals. Look at this. Look at what's happening to me." And ultimately I ended up going into business with him. But I did, as a result of my own experience, I started doing all this research, Nat, and
Hmm.
I did, college level courses in molecular biology and cellular biology and how the
Wow.
mitochondria works, and how minerals work in the body, and how minerals are replenished in cellular systems. And I studied plant decomposition, and I studied humic and fulvic molecules, which are plant-based minerals, and what they are, and what their capacities are, and how they work, and their miraculous kind of capacities that there are being studied all around the world. And it's, I mean, really, really in depth. I mean, to the point, if a word came up I didn't understand, I would study that word, just that single word, until I understood it. And so this took years.
You are a true geek. You know that.
I
You
really
are.
am. Well, you know, it's really an interesting thing. I'm like, when I'm excited and interested in something, I can't
You
stop
go in.
myself.
Yeah.
I really go in. So, and I was having fun, you know,
Mhm.
because everything was just like a light bulb going off in my brain. And there were, so in this journey, I started to have these aha moments. And I was like, why don't people know this? Why don't
Mhm.
doctors know this? Why didn't my naturopath know this? Why, you know,
Yeah.
and I really realized that this mineral replenishment issue is a ubiquitous problem, and that it truly is a cornerstone, a foundational element that everyone needs to know about it. So I started honing kind of how to talk about it in a way that would help people get it.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of the things, you know, that I like to say to people is like, you know, this thing, if you took all the water out of your body, you'd be a little pile of minerals.
Yeah.
You know, we don't think
So
about that.
interesting. And I think in the minerals, what's important to say also is these days, because of environmental pollution and exposures, would be a bunch of heavy metals as well. So it's, you
Yes.
know,
So that,
all of the, you know, it's like the heavy metals are kind of the not desirable side of the spectrum of minerals.
well, and so you have, yes, exactly. So you're made of minerals, and hopefully you're not made of too many heavy metals.
Yeah.
But most of
Yeah.
us are made of a lot of heavy metals right now
Exactly.
because of the environmental issues that we're dealing with.
Hmm.
You know, so there's, you know, as soon as you talk about one of the things I realized as I did my research is minerals are a very complex conversation. And so what I like to try and do is kind of simplify it for people, so that you can begin to understand, why should you even care?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Well,
minerals,
why don't we
you
talk
know?
about that a bit? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what's the big deal, and
Well,
where are we supposed to get them from? Why are we so
yeah.
depleted?
Well, one of the things so kind of the contextual conversation is, we are cellular beings. If you look at your body, every single part of your body is made of cells. And we tend to think about our bodies like we have a heart, and we have lungs, and we have a
Right.
liver, and we have a kidney, or we have endocrine systems, or hormonal systems, or enzymatic systems. You know, we have, you know, cardiovascular systems, and we have problems with those, and disease, and illness, and, you know, chronic issues we tend to think of as related to those systems or organs or tissues. But if you think about your body, and this is like the hugest aha that I had, was that every single cell in your body requires minerals to function.
Mm-hmm.
It requires minerals to fulfill its intended purpose, whether it's a heart cell, or a cell in your eye, or a cell in your liver, or a part of an enzyme, or part of a hormone. It's all cellular.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, you know, when we think about minerals, people either think about things like zinc, or maybe they've heard of chromium, or, you know, there's some
Calcium.
hills,
Yeah. Like,
calcium. Well, so then they think about electrolytes, and they think about potassium and magnesium and calcium and just different things, you know. And so they've heard about these things, but nobody really knows how minerals actually operate in the body. They just know, oh yeah, somebody said I need electrolytes,
yeah.
you know, okay, I'm going to drink some drinks, take some powders.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got into it, I'm like, oh my gosh, if people really knew, they would stop doing that stuff, because they realize that they're actually creating imbalance. So long story short, the basic thing is, you've got about like 37 trillion cells in your body, and every single cell, of which your entire body is made, requires a full spectrum of minerals, not just calcium and magnesium and
Mm-hmm.
but things you've probably never heard of, like molybdenum. I mean, you've probably heard of it,
I
but
was going to
yeah,
bring up molybdenum. It's
yeah,
like my
yeah,
favorite mineral because nobody's
yes,
heard of it. And
yeah. Or, you know, and people, you know, maybe you've heard of phosphorus, but did you know it's really important if you have cramping? people always think about magnesium, but do you know cramping can be caused by phosphorus deficiency?
Yeah.
So, things like copper, really
Hmm.
important for cognitive and longevity with cognitive function, things like that, and also for development of a brain of a baby,
Hmm.
things like that. Um, so there's a full spectrum of minerals. I mean, your body, as again, is made of the earth. We are made of minerals, and we need a full spectrum of minerals. So now you look at a food production system,
Hmm.
and also all the filtered water that we're drinking
Yeah.
that has no minerals in it.
Yeah.
So this is why there's actually a term for mineral and micronutrient deficiency, and it's called the hidden hunger. You can look it
Oh,
up,
interesting.
and it's
Yeah.
actually a new term that's come out in the last few years. And so the hidden hunger is a body that does not have all the minerals and micronutrients, macronutrients, they're all electrolytes, they're all minerals. And micronutrients are just minerals you need very small amounts of, but very important amounts.
Hmm.
So, so this hidden hunger is a body that doesn't have what it needs at a cellular level to generate enough energy to gain and maintain a healthy balance or homeostasis, which is what we're all feeling. We're like stressed on the inside. We think of stress as coming from the outside, but the
Yeah.
stress that's coming from the inside that's amping up our nervous systems, making it hard to sleep, or giving us less bandwidth to deal with the external stresses, is that literally our cells are hangry. They don't have, they're also toxified. So they're both storing too much of the toxins, environmental toxins they want to get rid of, and they also don't have the mineral content, the full spectrum of minerals needed to generate the energy, the ATP energy in the mitochondria.
Yeah. Well, I think I've heard, is it possible that I've heard to minerals and maybe even electrolytes as spark plugs for the cells?
It's exactly right. That's the way I
Yeah.
like to. It's a great. There's a lot of articles that talk about the
Okay.
spark plugs of life minerals.
Yeah.
So
And it makes
from
sense, right? Because we're in addition to being made of cells, we are fundamentally electrical beings.
exactly, and that's what's so cool when you get right down to it and you follow down. You actually, when you study minerals, you end up getting into quantum mechanics
Mm,
because it's actually at an atomic level. You get down into, you know, uh, atoms and how atoms work and how
electrons and
electrons fly off, and I mean, and then you realize the whole world is a vibrational place. It's
yeah.
all working on vibration, and anyway, then you go really deep into either what you would call woo woo or down the rabbit hole, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
What
Well,
the
and
bleep do we know?
I mean, there's value in that woo-woo kind of world rabbit hole because I think that you explore another universe and then at some point you end up pulling back and putting it into terms that people can relate to and understand,
Yeah.
right?
And that's the bottom line. Like if I could get people to just understand one thing, a few things, it would be, my entire body is made of cells, and every cell requires minerals, and I'm not getting enough from the food I eat.
Okay, so let's go to that now. Let's talk about the foods you eat because I would imagine that there's a dual problem of depletion and the presence of the wrong things, which
Yes,
which
exactly.
probably exacerbates the depletion issue. So
Exactly.
maybe you
So
can
there
speak to that a bit.
So there's two pieces. One is that just production farming in general. If you think about when you grow a plant in soil, what does a plant do? It sucks the minerals out of the soil. That's what it
Hmm.
does. And it goes into the plant, and then you eat the plant and you get those minerals and other things. Okay. Um, so anytime that you're growing plants continually in the same soil year after year after year, that soil gets depleted. In fact, they had a congressional session in the 1930s about mineral depletion in the soil and what were they
Wow.
going to do about it. And they have done nothing.
Mhm.
Instead, what they did was they created glyphosates,
Yeah.
which are, and I have done so much study about glyphosates because that's where my studies ended up leading me, and realized that, I always thought GMO is just making a better strawberry or better, cucumber or something, but actually it was genetically modifying plants so that they could spray weed killer,
Yeah.
this glyphosate weed killer, directly onto the plants, and the plants wouldn't die, but the weeds would.
Mm-hmm.
And so what the glyphosate molecule does, this is such an interesting thing, is it actually leaches, that's not exactly the right term, you could say chelates out copper, molybdenum, a couple of other minerals out of those weeds, and that's how they die.
Oh,
So
no
guess
kidding.
yeah, so guess what, when you get glyphosates in you, because those glyphosates which are sprayed directly onto the plants are on the plants, and you or in the plants even, because they use these things called surfactants and adjuvants, which actually make the plants absorb those glyphosates. And then those go into your body, and they have all sorts of issue. They create all sorts of issues. The main thing that they do is they attack a particular enzyme group called CP450, which is the same one which is associated with celiacs
Yeah.
and gluten intolerance. Isn't that interesting, since we've had such a rise in gluten intolerance, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it affects the tight junctions in your gut, which are what keep you from having leaky gut. They call it the first line of defense.
Yeah.
And there's and we're going to be doing a panel discussion about this at the next biohacking conference. We're going to bring Stephanie Seneff
Amazing.
and Kiran Krishna from Microbiome Labs, and some really great people. And I hope to be there to talk about the aspects of plant-based minerals and how they can support remediation of
Mm-hmm.
glyphosates. But so anyway, we have these issues with minerals, not only that the foods themselves are depleted of minerals, but also we're getting glyphosates in our systems, which are further exacerbating both mineral deficiency by leaching minerals out of our system, and then also creating other health issues. And there's many health correlations, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, autism, et cetera, that have been correlated to glyphosate exposure.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely, and it amazes me how it's been almost impossible to get rid of in terms of politically. I
Well,
mean,
and
for
yes,
the challenge is it's in the environment now. There's not, the cat's out of the bag.
right,
Getting rid of it in the environment would be one thing, but even just getting governments to agree to ban it is,
exactly.
I mean, I've walked out of stores because I see Roundup on the shelves and I'm like, I'm not shopping here. You people
Yeah.
are crazy.
So, and so it truly is a systemic issue.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the news came out that in 2013 and 14, they did a study in the US that showed that 80% of Americans had glyphosates in their urine. And that
Sure.
was in 2013, 14.
Yeah.
So at this point, we all have it
Yeah.
across, I mean, they found it on the North Pole and the South Pole. So,
Yeah. It's everywhere.
so it's everywhere. And so we have a systemic issue that we're going to be having to deal with. So now we talk about, so the segue is we have a problem. They say that most modern humans have about 30 to 37% of the minerals. If you're supplementing, you might have a little bit more, but 30
Hmm.
to 37% of the minerals in your body that you need.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
so that means
So what does
that,
that mean? So how does that show up for people?
yeah.
And,
So
I
how it,
mean, yeah.
exactly. So if you look at my story, what it
Hmm.
shows up as is inflammation. It shows up as an amped up nervous system that has a lot of cravings, that hidden hunger, craving for sugar. What does a hungry cell crave? It craves glucose.
Yeah.
It craves energy in whatever quick form it can get. Um, and then it also shows up in chronic low level issues like headaches or skin problems, or just like lack of digestive enzymes, like all it's like, think about your cells in your body as each cell, and your body is so miraculous. It has this incredible ability. It's constantly working to gain and maintain natural homeostasis. Every cell in your body is working to do its intended thing, whether it's a skin cell or a heart cell or whatever. It's working hard to do its job, fulfill its intended purpose. But inside your cells, you have mitochondria, and we all know, in the biohacking world, the powerhouse of the cell. But let's go inside the mitochondria and recognize that there are two things inside the mitochondria that drive ATP production. One is amino acids and the other is minerals. Those two things are the building blocks of ATP production. And it's a full spectrum of minerals. Like it might be at one stage you need some molybdenum, and in some other stage you need calcium, and more, you need a lot of calcium and magnesium and potassium, but you also very specifically need phosphorus and chromium and zinc and all these others at those specific stages. So what happens is, when your cells do not have the mineral cofactors available to the mitochondria, they move into an anaerobic function. So when you're at, let's say you're at the gym and you're working out and you feel your muscle flagging, that's because those cells in those muscles don't have the mineral content available to continue generating ATP energy to continue your effort, the work that you're doing in that area. So, you're working and you feel the muscle get sore. That's actually mineral depletion in that area.
Well, so that the cell can no longer perform its function, so that the muscle fibers can no longer contract and relax, so that, it's that whole chain of events.
That whole chain of events.
Right.
And it all starts, and it's literally, so the cell that, let's say when it has all the minerals available, it can generate 12 units of energy. That mitochondria inside the cell can generate 12 units of energy. And when it doesn't have the minerals available, it can only generate 1.
Right. So you just don't have as much capacity.
Yes, exactly. So now imagine that you only have about 37% of the minerals, maybe 40 if you really, really take care of yourself and supplement a lot, So that means that 60% of your cells are operating anaerobically.
Yeah, it's not a good scene.
It's hard to get off the couch. No, right? No wonder we're tired. No wonder we're having a hard time dealing with the stresses of life. And no wonder as we get older, and particularly as you get older, the electrical systems in your body, even more so, you need to provide minerals, because the electrical systems in your body work less efficiently. So even more so, you need to provide that content. So the cool thing about this is, as I started studying how does the body actually replenish minerals, I had such a huge aha. I was like, well, no wonder these plant-based minerals actually made a difference. And that's kind of where I'd love to go in our conversation, is to talk about that, because most of us don't really have any idea. We just know the doctor said, or somebody said, take some pills.
No, I definitely want to go into that in conversation. And I think also, if we could touch upon if there are connections to gut health. Like all of these issues that people are dealing with that are so prevalent right now, gut health, supporting good immunity, which starts in the gut, but that immune system has to be able to function, because I think that it's important to stay away from the top line kind of minerals are super important and you need them. And you do a very good job of bringing home to people the message, why, like what is it about these minerals that's going to make things better, kind of thing. And I think that the other concept to explore is that just popping a bunch of minerals willy-nilly
doesn't fulfill the body's needs because of the specificity of ratios
Mm-hmm.
that the body needs, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
reproducing that balance, it's like essential amino acids, right? If you take a 1-to-1-to-1-to-1 of all of the essential amino acids, it's going to be massive waste.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'd love to kind of bring that conversation into the mineral world as well, just because, again, just helping people to understand, like, how far upstream really are you able to get with these things? And I don't think you can get much further upstream.
Right. Right. You know, the hugest aha that I had as I was going into understanding minerals and how they work in the body and how they're replenished is that, first of all, none of us, I mean, I talk to practitioners every day, and they don't know this because no one ever told them. You know, so the way I'd like to break it down, and it really, this is, I think, the most empowering thing people can learn about their health and wellness that you'll learn in a year. And it is the simple concept of bioavailability. And this is a buzzword that we all use, but I want to break it down for people because it's really important. So the first, you know, there's 3 stages of bioavailability, and the first is digestion. We think we understand that pretty well, right? And then there's absorption, which is into the bloodstream.
Yep.
And then there's assimilation, which is into the cells. And if you don't have one of those, whatever you put in your mouth is pretty useless.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's just talk about digestion, because I want people to really understand this. It's so cool. So first of all, when you think about minerals, most mineral supplements are made from rocks, shells, bones, and some salts. Salts are pretty readily digestible, but these other things, your body is not well evolved to digest those things. Your digestive system actually isn't very adept at digesting rocks, shells, and bones.
Shockingly.
So,
yeah.
And what we have to understand is that digesting a mineral supplement means it has to be all the way ionized down to its chemical components in your digestive tract. Your digestive tract, it has to be completely ionized, dissolved down to its chemical components before it can be absorbed.
Right.
So you take this rock, salt, shell, bone stuff, and you put it in your mouth. And also somebody said you needed to take 300, somebody set an RDA, a minimum RDA of 320 milligrams or whatever it is of magnesium. So you're taking this pill of this huge amount, and only a very, very small amount, maybe 10 to 12% of that actually ever gets ionized, dissolved down to its components ready for absorption.
Now, what about the idea of chelation, like that the body, I think that's the word I'm looking for. So that in the gut, you need to have enough stomach acid so that the magnesium is bound to something else.
So that's actually in the world of salts, rocks, salts, and bones, and in the world of plant-based minerals, that is not.
It's all done.
It's a totally different conversation.
Oh,
but yes, so this is the whole thing about bioavailability. You read like, oh, I need to have, I don't know, I need to be taking calcium chloride or gluconate. You know, there's these, and these are ionized. These, when you take, at least when you take our minerals, people always ask me what kind of potassium is in your plant-based minerals. I said, no, it's just potassium. Like, think of the periodic table. It's potassium.
It's K.
It's K.
It's the
exactly.
K.
And it's ready to be potassium chloride or potassium. It's available to be whatever is needed.
Okay.
So that's one of the beautiful things about it. But let's talk for a minute, because so now you have, let's say 10 to 12% of that potassium has dissolved down to its ionic components. And it's ready for absorption. So your gut is lined with these finger-like structures called villi, and lining those villi are these epithelial cells, and lining every epithelial cell are these receptor sites. And here's the thing that blew my mind is that every receptor is specific
Yeah.
to a specific component. It's not like they're just like doors that anything can go through. No, it's like it's a potassium or it's a potassium gluconate or potassium. It's like it's specific.
Right.
So when you flood your system, even if a whole bunch of it got actually dissolved down to its ionic components, there's only so many receptors available. So, and then we talk about the health of your gut, because the health of your gut is now what's going to affect those receptors, the availability of those receptors. Because a lot of people either maybe they've had a bowel resection, or maybe they just have such inflammation or leaky gut. They've got lots of problems with those receptors. So that's the second stage, is getting, we're just talking about minerals, but this actually applies to everything you put in your mouth, every single nutritional element you put in your mouth. So now it gets absorbed via these receptor sites into your bloodstream. And once it's in your bloodstream, that's only the second stage of bioavailability, because the third stage is now it actually has to get into the cells. And this is one thing people don't realize about minerals, and why most mineral supplements are not really that effective, is even if it gets into your bloodstream, we don't have very many vehicles for getting it into the cells. Zinc is a good one to think about, because we know from the pandemic, you're supposed to take zinc, because what it does is it creates this inhospitable environment inside the cell for replication of COVID,
Right.
or viruses in general.
Yeah.
But it has to get inside the cell. So how does it get in there? And it gets in there through this process called diffusion, which is just using this, if you put a pinch of salt in water and you see the salt on the bottom, you come back an hour later and the whole water is salty, because there's this law of the concentration gradient across all liquids where it tries to equal. It wants an equal amount of salt through every cell in that water. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how your body works. But first of all, a lot of people, I talk to athletes who have hydration issues, drinking a lot of water, but they're still dehydrated.
Yeah.
And that's
you hear that a
literally
lot.
because there's two problems. One, they don't have enough channels. So there's like in the cell wall, these channels open up where the water and the nutrients, et cetera, can go, and toxins can come out. So water can go in and other nutrients can go in, other minerals, and toxins can come out. So that's the first issue, is that we don't have enough channels that are opening. And the next is there's something called a flavonoid. We've all heard that term.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, flavonoids, those are good. But what they're really cool. So I always like to describe it like this, because it's really visual, and people can, if you're sitting in a room right now and you've got like some doors and windows, imagine the doors and windows are open. But now imagine you've got more doors and windows. So now you've got more openings, and now you have some really big, strong guys who can carry lots of things in and out of the room. A flavonoid is like that really big, strong person who can carry 60 times its weight, in the case of fulvic mineral complexes, into the cell. And then also out, carrying toxins and biowaste out. So what we need, and this is the cool thing, is that Mother Nature, the earth, already provided the perfect solution for mineral replenishment for cellular systems. All cellular systems, your body included, already use fulvic and humic for full system detoxification and mineral replenishment into the mitochondria. It's like the most natural solution, and your body is specifically evolved over millennia to utilize them.
Interesting.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it is cool. And so we get these, they get absorbed by plants, and then we eat the plants, and then it gets.
No, it's not actually like that.
It's not, because I was wondering also, like, is there a channel through animal protein, for example, because they're eating plants?
Right. No. So it's a really interesting thing. So let's talk about, so first of all, just to finish that thought. So bioavailability meaning you have to first digest, then you have to absorb into the bloodstream. It has to get into your cells. And most of us don't have enough flavonoids in our system, so we struggle to get things into our cells. Our digestive systems don't work very well, so we tend to have a hard time absorbing things. So the system's kind of messed up. So that's what's exacerbating that's one of the problems that exacerbates mineral deficiency. And then the other piece is the glyphosates, which again further diminish minerals and have other issues that are created in our gut
from the glyphosate.
Right, from the glyphosates toxicity. So okay, so now we have this concept of plant-based minerals. And once I understood this concept of bioavailability, and then I understood the capacities of plant-based minerals, I was like, well, no wonder they can make such difference. But first, let's talk about where they come from, because it's really interesting. You don't just eat a plant and get them.
Okay.
So imagine an entire rainforest that's decomposed over millennia into this incredibly mineral-rich substance called humate.
Okay.
And it has lots of other names like leonardite, like peat. Shilajit is also humic and fulvic. So that comes from the Himalayas. So inside of humate are these two components, and one is called humic and the other is called fulvic. And they're molecules, and they occur together everywhere. Everywhere where you see humic, you see fulvic. They have a symbiotic relationship. And they're created by microbes. And it's a very specific set of microbes, and it's a microbial process. So one microbe metabolizes a plant as that plant is decomposing, and it excretes a substance, and that another microbe metabolizes that excretion, and then another microbe metabolizes that microbe and excretes something. And it's a very, very specific process, which is why they haven't been able to just quickly make a huge amount of it and utilize it. It's being studied all around the world. So this humate again has these two components, humic and fulvic. And let me talk about fulvic, because it's a really, really miraculous substance. It's a very small molecule. It's much smaller than a cell, and it's this flavonoid, and it can carry 60 times its weight of nutrients, minerals. It has as part of its molecule 70 plus minerals, and it binds with all the nutrients in your system. It's the only electrolyte that they know that can change its polarity. In fact, the historic description of an electrolyte is a molecule with a charge. Either positive or negative. The fulvic molecule is the only molecule they know that can change its charge. And what it does is it carries positively charged ions, the nutrients, the minerals into your cell, and then it changes its charge, and those things drop off. And then the negatively charged bio-waste, toxins, heavy metals cling to it, and it carries those out of the cell.
Really?
Diffusion process.
That's crazy.
Isn't it phenomenal?
Well, it's nutty, because it's almost like it has a consciousness. Like, I mean, how does it know that these are to bring the good stuff in and pull the bad stuff out?
How does it know? Exactly. So this is, I'll send you, and we can actually, if you want to link this document that I've compiled all these different scientific studies, so people who really want to delve into this and learn more can.
For sure.
It gets, when I studied that, I ended up studying it leads into quantum mechanics.
I was going to say, this is
it leads into quantum singularities. And it's really, really it's miraculous on one level, and then on another way it's just science and the way the world works.
So exactly.
So this molecule, so imagine this, this very small, incredibly mineral rich molecule that can carry nutrients into your cell and provide all these full spectrum of minerals to the mitochondria. So now you greatly increase nutrient uptake into your system, and you greatly increase the ability of your cells to detoxify.
In
Okay.
probably a much more gentle way. Or do you find people have Herx reactions when they start using your product?
Well,
Or is it more
not
gentle than
not from the fulvic.
okay.
So and we can talk a little bit about Herx. It's worthwhile. So this fulvic is this intercellular transporter, is the way I like to describe it. Nutrients in, biowaste and toxins out. So now it's out in the bloodstream, and it's changed its polarity again, and now these things are in the bloodstream. And now we talk about the humic molecule, very different molecule. It's very large relative to a cell. It hangs out in the bloodstream, and it's a strong electrolyte, one of the strongest electrolytes known to man. And it binds with free radicals. It's like exponentially thousands of times more effective as an antioxidant than any superfood or superfood mix you could imagine. And so it's grabbing antioxidants, free radicals.
Yeah.
It's binding with biowaste and just environmental toxins and heavy metals. It's an incredible chelator. It's so effective as a heavy metal chelator. They use it in toxic waste dumps to chelate out heavy metals in the soil. We've been working with a scientist who, not actually directly with him, but with a guy who has been working with a guy in Russia. And this guy has been working with humic minerals for 30 years. And he was asked to, as a group, part of a group of scientists, to see if he could get anything to grow in a site near Chernobyl. And they all were given little plots, and different people tried different things. And his was the only plot that was growing. Within 4 months, I think, he had like plants growing in it.
And he used humic.
And he put humic on it.
Interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's incredibly effective as a heavy metal chelator. So what it does is it grabs those things. At a certain point, it gets so heavy at a molecular weight that it falls out of solution and leaves your body through the normal elimination channels. So you talked about Herx responses. We have had some people have Herx responses, and it's usually people who have an autoimmune, people who have had mycotoxin, Lyme's. Those are the three most ones that when I talk to people. There's a few people who maybe don't know that they have autoimmune, but there's, it is a very, very gentle substance. But if you are highly toxified, your body will go, yoo-hoo, I can get rid of this stuff more quickly. And you might have some Herx responses. I always work with people. All you need to do is just introduce it much more slowly. Rather than taking it as a shot, you would just mix it with some non-chlorinated water and drink it over an hour, and you build up over time.
Right. And it bears mentioning that I think a big key to this is having those channels of elimination open. I think, in the field of nutrition, we learned about the digestion, absorption, assimilation thing. You can't assimilate what you don't absorb, what you don't digest. But then the other big concept that I think is so important is making sure that the channels of elimination are open. And that's because I think that's where a lot of people get into trouble. And so and what I mean by that is you were just talking about humic now falls out of solution. It's got to go somewhere. And it hopefully ends up, would it end up in urine or feces, or is it naturally?
It literally comes out through it comes out through your breath, through your skin, through your
and sweat
glands, through your urine, through your feces, every channel. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, and that's, one of the things that is, of course, becoming much more prevalent is people's understanding of detox, because we have so many issues with environmental toxins, and people are becoming more aware of detoxification requirements or necessity. And one of the things that I say to people is, okay, so you can go and do a detoxification protocol, and that's great. I'm not saying people shouldn't, with the care of somebody, under the care of somebody.
For sure.
But the minute you finish that detoxification protocol, you're just eating more food that has glyphosates, et cetera. So what I love about the plant-based humic and fulvic is what they are doing is they are providing the natural tools that all cellular systems use for constant, gentle detoxification. I like to call the humic Mother Nature's janitor.
Yeah, no, that's a great analogy. So are there protocols where people use more or less you said less for some people who might be very sensitive or have something going on, but for someone, let's say, and we're going to talk about testing in a minute, because but for someone, let's say, who has a major issue, they've got some kind of heavy metal toxicity, they're very toxic, they've got a lot going on. Would that person use that person use humic and fulvic minerals differently than someone who's just, in a good place and just wants to stay in that good place?
Well, first of all, I will say that there are certainly some protocols out there that do use humic for in detox protocols. So first of all, we'll say that.
Yeah.
Our products are about daily use. And the thing that I'm going to say this is really a developed understanding from my research, and we'd have to go much more deeply and really talk about it for a long time, just about detox. And I don't consider myself a detoxification expert, but I've talked a lot with detoxification experts about this. And really, ultimately, what we need to find, and again, specifically if you're thinking about glyphosates, we have a systemic issue.
Yeah, it's ongoing. You can't get away from it. Yeah.
Yes. So really, we need systemic solutions, not acute solutions, because acute solutions don't solve systemic issues. So what you really want to think about, and this is in terms of mineral replenishment and detoxification, is you want to think about how to support your system, because your body is so smart, so intelligent. There is no way that we can hack our body to understand what minerals it needs when.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah. So instead, what we want to do is provide the tools for mineral replenishment, both in terms of the full spectrum of minerals via these humic and fulvic substances, plus the transportation into the cells via these fulvic flavonoids, plus the detoxification tool via the humic molecule. And we want to do that on a low level always. Now, whether or not you're going to do some acute detoxification protocol because you found out that you have very high levels of mercury or something, and you're going to do a specific detoxification protocol. But as soon as you're done with that, or even during, these are going to be the best support that you can provide your body on an ongoing basis. And the beautiful thing about the fulvic is that not only is it doing what we've talked about thus far, but it's also making everything else that you put in your body more bioavailable. So as an example, I take thyroid. I have genetically, every woman in my family has low thyroid. I'm actually on a mission to solve that.
Well, I can tell you that, thyroid is probably another epidemic.
It totally is.
I don't speak to anybody, I don't think ever anymore, who doesn't have some kind of thyroid imbalance.
Well, and I'm really in a process of learning about that one, and because I do believe it's possible to heal it, but I actually ended up having high thyroid after taking these for about 2 years, taking the minerals. Actually, I thought I was having heart thing, and I went to the hospital. I was like, what's happening? I thought I was having a heart attack or something. Turned out I had high thyroid. They had
Because
a
you were on the
lower-
medication.
Yes, because I was taking, and so what happened is over time, my body became so much more efficient at uptaking the thyroid and utilizing it that I take less.
Oh, that's amazing.
So in fact, I always say I'm the cheapest drunk in the world. I hardly ever drink, but if I have like literally like this much wine, like a small few sips, and I'm like, woo, I feel that.
You're just a cheap drunk.
But it's also if I have sugar too, if I eat some, sweet thing, I'm like, woo, feel that, So.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So with the so basically, so what you're saying is that this is the homeostatic baseline play, and over time, and I guess, going back to the beginning of the conversation, people will notice the shifts very slowly and gently over time, depending on how much work there is to be done. And we all have some work to be done, but it's really about giving your body the time in the space of, and, I guess it depends on the person, how fast they start to experience any shifts. Like one person might feel a difference, someone feel the difference in their energy within a couple of weeks, but then they're not going to experience something else for another 3 months. And then, like you with your teeth or your bones. I mean, you said I think you said you had osteoporosis at some point, and I'm guessing that's a past
I didn't
tense.
actually.
No, you haven't gotten there.
Never.
Okay.
No, I haven't had that, but but yeah, calcium, particularly for the osteoporosis issue. I mean, there's all sorts of things you have to learn about that, right? And
and the thing with exactly. I mean, the problem with it's a whole problem, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like just pounding calcium, we now know is a big giant problem and possibly the worst strategy that you could enact, right? So I guess what people are going to ask and what they're going to wonder is they get told, if you have issues with your bones, then you need to be taking 500 milligrams of calcium, and then 1,000 milligrams of magnesium, and then maybe some potassium, some boron, some silica, whatever. And, assuming they even go that far. Yes. And we know that a lot of those minerals don't end up where they're supposed to end up. And with calcium in particular, it looks for and finds trouble in blood vessels and whatnot.
Exactly.
So,
yes. Exactly.
So people are going to say, well, how many milligrams of calcium, magnesium am I going to get from my B minerals? Like, how could they possibly help me with my bones, right?
Well, and that's exactly what we get this question all the time. They're like, well, how much magnesium? Because they're, on keto or something, and I'm like, oh goodness, okay, let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
And one of the things I like to tell people is, there's a reason they call it electrolyte balance, because minerals work more like hormones or blood sugar than they do. They work in balanced pairs. And once you begin to understand that, I was speaking with a cellular biologist who said if people only knew how much work they were adding to their system by taking these large amounts, these we call megadose formatted, pills and powders of electrolytes, because what happens is your body only absorbs digests a certain amount, absorbs a certain amount, and the rest your body has to work to eliminate. That's why people get the runs when they take magnesium. It's because your body's saying, I got to get rid of this. This is too much. And there's other symptoms people get from from too much of other minerals. So it's absolutely ludicrous to think that we have any idea what the minimum RDA of magnesium is for you and I and every other human on earth, because somebody said we're supposed to get 320 milligrams a day. It's just it's ludicrous, because all of our bodies are different. All of our bodies are dealing with different issues, etc. So it's not helping. What you're doing is you're creating this constant back and forth. Now your body is constantly working. Think about the gut microbiome. We know that it's all about this creating this really lush environment. And now you're throwing in, a huge amount of this mineral in there, and your body's going, okay, what do I do? Okay, got to get rid of all that. Oh, we need a little,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like a mono. So you're basically, what you're saying is it's out of context, it's out of balance, and it's not coming with all the other balancing elements.
And it's just a misunderstanding. This is the next upgrade, kind of up level of knowledge. That's why I say minerals is the vanguard of health, because we still have this old model around minerals and electrolytes, which is about minimum RDAs, and this is why I'm on this mission to talk about it, because once you do this paradigm shift, you're like, oh, I see. Actually, that's not how mineral replenishment works in my body. I'm creating more work for my body. Instead, what I want to do is do this constant infusion of these very minute amounts of extremely bioavailable, completely ionized minerals, provided with the tools of assimilation via the fulvic and of detoxification via the humic. I mean, it's Mother Nature's technology.
Yeah, it's a pretty elegant solution when you think about it. So you keep saying electrolytes and minerals and electrolytes. Like, are they different? Are they the same? What's the difference between them?
The only reason they're all minerals.
Right.
And the only reason I say electrolytes and minerals is because people think about them that way.
Okay.
So when people think
all these
about
electrolyte
minerals,
drinks.
Yeah. When people think about electrolytes, they're just highly charged minerals.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. And that's what people will put in their water, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. And these are the things. So electrolytes tend to be what we call macro minerals, the minerals that we need a lot of. Our body utilizes a lot of magnesium, a lot of potassium. And then the micronutrients are, they're all minerals. So this is part of the up leveling of the conversation.
Right. And so, and so the other question I had for you is, like I talk to a lot of people and they're very concerned about, and certainly some people have a tendency to bioaccumulate zinc or copper, right? And these can be problematic because they can go from being beneficial to being a real negative. And so what do you say to those people? Because in a product like yours, they're going to be present. You were just about to talk a little bit about the balance. So we don't use 1-to-1 zinc to copper. I think it's I want to say, is it a 16-to-1 ratio or 5-to-1?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, so there's a very specific ratio. And people are very worried sometimes if they know that they have a genetic predisposition to hang on to zinc. They're going to say, well, I'm not going to take this because there's zinc in it or there's copper, and they're worried about that. So do you want to speak to that a little bit? Because I have a feeling that.
Yeah. Well, so again, this is why I say we don't know everything. We don't know everything about how humic and fulvic work in cellular systems to create homeostasis, but we see that they do.
Right.
So the scientific studies observe over and over that they chelate out heavy metals. Now, why do they chelate out? Why does the humic take out the lead and the mercury and et cetera? And
leave the good stuff.
And leave the good stuff. Why?
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't know, but we know that this is a system that is evolved, on the earth, and that all plants and animals use this. So this is where we're just starting as in the world of science. I shouldn't say we, because I'm not really a scientist, but certainly
we collectively, the greater we.
We collect, right?
The royal
exactly,
we, yeah,
right. The royal we, exactly.
I use the royal we all the time because I too am not a scientist. So
yes, so we're just learning about this. But what I would say is, so many people taking zinc during the pandemic because somebody said it's going to help with your immune system. And now we end up with people who are having zinc toxicity because they're taking megadose amounts of zinc.
Yeah.
Do you
on
see?
and on and on.
And that's not what the body needs.
Yeah.
So again, this is back to my dream is that the aisle at the grocery store or at the pharmacy or the wherever the Walgreens that has all those megadose bottles of chromium and zinc and potassium and magnesium and all these different things would disappear, and in pill form
Mm-hmm.
and powder and drinks, flavored drinks, which you now have to digest, that would just go away.
Yeah.
Because if you have a deep depletion, a deep deficiency in a particular mineral, it does make sense to bring that deficiency up to some baseline. But there are much more effective ways to do that than taking some pill that you get
Mm-hmm.
at the grocery store. And that's a whole other conversation that we could have.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you on
But
that
to
one.
provide, instead of thinking that you're going to hack your body and take 20 pills, like you said, instead you're going to take plant-based minerals that have all the minerals that your body needs. I
Yeah.
don't take any mineral supplements.
That's amazing.
I did a test just recently at the biohacking conference. We had our Oligoscan there, and I did a test. Do you know I had maybe 3 things that were in the yellow and everything is in the green?
Wow. That's amazing.
Even my heavy metals. We have another woman who came, she had done a study, a hair analysis in, I think it was like January of this year, and she started taking our minerals in May, and she did a scan. Everything was in the green.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
So
impressive.
again, she may have had very open detoxification pathways.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to remember there's all sorts of different things. And there's also there's a whole lot more to understand about it. So particularly with the Oligoscan. So
Right. So yeah, so here are a couple more things that I want to talk about before we run out of
oh,
time.
I'm supposed to have another call.
Oh, well, can you be late?
Yeah, of course I will.
Okay. So I have a couple so I want to talk about the Oligoscan because of course all this begs the question, how do people figure out their balance, their mineral balance and whether they have too much or not enough of something. But the other one I wanted to talk about was using B minerals, and do you use them intentionally in a specific way around something like sauna or like infrared sauna, or which is notorious for helping the body to clear different toxins and minerals, and frankly even good ones, right? Because if I do, I was sick last week and I did a bunch of saunas a few days in a row, and sure enough, within 3 days I started to get cramps in my feet at night because you're just dumping a whole bunch of stuff that you actually need. So let's answer the sauna question first, and then let's go to the Oligoscan, because I think that's going to be a bigger conversation in terms of how people should be assessing their mineral balance. Is there an intentional way of the product to use it around something like sauna? Or are you just taking it every day and it's going to do its thing and help you out?
Yeah, see, it would be really interesting for you to be taking the plant-based minerals daily and then do your sauna routine and continue it.
Yeah.
And maybe because you're doing the saunas, you would increase
On those days.
the electrolytes, the fulvic
Okay.
on those days, because the sauna is increasing the detoxification already.
Yeah.
So you just want to provide a little bit more nutrient uptake, which would increase the energy generation, which would decrease the cramps.
Yeah, although I wonder if taking more of the humic as well would be helpful, because if I'm pushing more toxins out of the tissues into the bloodstream, I'm going to need more of the big guys to carry it out, right? Like I think
it's so true. And I literally wake up every morning at this point and I ask my body what it wants. And some days it's like it just wants humic. Recently, actually, I've been only taking, I don't know why, but my body's just saying, no, I only want the fulvic.
Interesting.
For about a week and a half, which is really interesting. But then sometimes, let's say I might feel like a little bit of a cold or something coming on. I mean, I really never get, knock on wood, but I really don't get sick anymore, But let's say I feel a little something, I just will take a little extra humic and it's gone.
Interesting. Interesting. And then actually I lied. There was one other thing I wanted to touch on before we went to the testing, and that was minerals and PEMF. There's a lot of people who are now finally, which is great, getting their hands on pulsed electromagnetic frequency devices of some kind, whether it's a mat or an amp coil or, you know, any of these devices. And I have an anecdotal story myself of my parents who when we first met, I think I was traveling carry-on, so I didn't want to take the bottles with me, but went to see my mom and dad after the conference. So I left them with 2 big bottles of your products.
So
But
cool.
I had also bought them a Pure Wave mat at that conference. And it's interesting to me that I will say that the mat has made a massive difference in both their health. And interestingly enough, I would guess that the minerals enabled the mat to do what it needed to do, because I know that Tony will often talk about when people start using, you know, when she's introducing people to PMF, you got to make sure that you get your minerals in and your electrolytes there. And it's what we were talking about before, that so that spark plug of the cell, we're, you know, with the PMF, we're optimizing the charge across the cell membrane. We're improving cellular function. It kind of follows that you have to have these pieces in place. Have you seen that in talking to people?
Absolutely. And we were talking at the last biohacking conference with the MedBed people about this, who also have a device that works. It's different, but works with electromagnetic systems in the body. And absolutely, again, I'm just going to say that your entire body runs on minerals, electrolytes.
Yeah.
Your body is an electrical system.
Yeah. And
without minerals, your body doesn't work very well. So, you know, we have the spray, the our Instalight spray, and it's a fulvic spray.
Yeah,
and
I have some here.
Yeah,
don't move. Keep talking.
And so the cool thing about the spray, do you have Happy Lights?
I have Happy Lights.
Yeah, Happy Lights, which is also a fulvic spray. So now when you spray that on, because the fulvic molecule is so small, it absorbs directly through the derma, directly into the cells, directly into the mitochondria in the local area where you're spraying it. And what it does is it enhances the electrical system in the area, all of the electrical connections between cells, all of the electrical communication, it greatly enhances that. And it also is starting to do detoxification of those cells in that area, because it's allowing the cells to release their toxic elements. So it's doing 3 things. So, you know, I often have people go to a gym and try it, you know, go spray one side of your body and not the other before your workout, and then feel the difference in the muscle.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. And that's with the Happy Lights, or anyone? Is it a different way?
You could use the Happy Lights, but Happy Lights is specifically it does a couple of other things because of the bergamot in it, but it's a mood enhancer.
Yeah,
but,
no, it just smells good.
And it just smells good. But it's also the electrolyte, what I call the electrolyte misting spray, you know, so it's doing so many things. So back to the PMF thing. Absolutely. And I think you can talk with any person, any company that's involved with any kind of PMF device or tool. They all agree that minerals are a key component. I was joking with somebody that said, you know, if you were super mineral depleted and you were in a bathtub and you dropped a radio in there, or, you know, an electrical device, you wouldn't get electrocuted. You know?
Well, yeah,
now,
I think you'd have to be pretty. You'd have to be pretty depleted for that.
Right.
Yeah,
probably
but
you'd have to already be dead. But
yeah, now that you mention it, I actually think that there was another PMF company, a big one. And they use, when I was talking to them back in the day, they were giving people, they had an electrolyte solution that they were asking people to use before they got onto that PMF bed.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to collaborate with some of those companies to
Yeah, I think your
use our
product should be at
Yeah.
all those booths at the show,
Yeah,
honestly, and people should be
exactly.
taking a shot before they get on the bed to try it out.
Exactly.
So, okay, so let's talk about measuring. Let's talk about assessing. So, generally speaking, people get certainly their heavy metals. Like, there's all the different fluids of the body. There's the blood, there's the serum, there's hair tissue mineral analysis, like looking at what's in the hair.
Mhm.
And we know that all of these are measuring different things. Like they're measuring almost different repositories of minerals and electrolytes in the body. And they don't always match up, and they don't always reflect even what's happening like in the tissues, like maybe in the brain where, we know that heavy metals can make all kinds of trouble, or in muscle or other types of tissue, and fat tissue, which is another one, because when people are losing weight, they're releasing toxins or they won't lose weight because the body has sequestered all these toxins in the fat and doesn't want to let it go. So let's talk about how do we measure?
Right. So there's so many pieces to this, and people always walk up to my booth and say, how would I know, if I'm mineral deficient? I said, you are.
Yeah.
We all are. So that's the basic thing. In terms of deficiency, we're all mineral deficient. You can guarantee it. Now, and they say, well, how would I know if I have toxicity? And I said, you have it. We're all toxic on some level.
Yeah.
Because we're all encountering these environmental toxins constantly.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, you need to be supplementing minerals, and you need to be providing tools for your body to detox. So now if you want to know more detail about it, around study or around getting that tested, if the tool that I recommend is this tool, it's called a Ligascan. A Ligascan uses photospectrometry, which is something that's used in all material sciences, and it shines a light into your tissues and it returns data, which then is taken through an algorithm that tells you what your levels of heavy metals, all your beneficial minerals and electrolytes, your vitamin levels. It'll even tell you kind of some overarching like oxidative stress and things, levels.
And so which tissue is it looking at?
It actually they just put it right on your hand.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, your hand is actually a really good place to do it because you're constantly rubbing your hand against things. So actually you're constantly losing ions right through your hand. So it's actually a really good place to test. So people are like, oh, well, they say hair analysis is the best, or, other excretion methods. So the thing to understand about testing mineral levels or heavy metal levels, these kinds of things, is if you test the blood, you're only testing an ambient, what you've ingested over a fairly short period of time. If you're testing urine, or feces, you're only testing actually what you've excreted. And same with your hair, actually. It's actually an excretion method. And the problem is that lots of people do not excrete. And even so, then the other, when you go and get your urine, do a urine analysis, they'll give you something so that you will excrete.
To push it out. Yeah.
They'll push it out. So that's also not really telling you. It's not giving you a great understanding, because that could be just pushing it out of what's in your blood or what's, it's not actually knowing what is my tissue load. But so in terms of heavy metals, you want to know what is my body holding on to? What is the lifetime load of heavy metals in my body? And in terms of assimilation, in terms of beneficial minerals and electrolytes, I want to know what are my tissues, what is being utilized or available for utilization by the mitochondria. That's in your tissues, that's in your cells. See? So
then the OligoScan assesses this almost at from the hand. So the assumption is that the tissue in the hand that the OligoScan is scanning is representative of the rest of the system.
Yes,
essentially.
exactly. Yes.
Okay.
And we've done lots of different tests because we were really skeptical initially, and somebody recommended to us, a practitioner that we work with. We always have her at our booth. She's been doing this for like 25 years, I think, really, which it's not very well known in the US. It's well known in Europe, but not well known in the US. And she's really, really experienced in reading the data and helping to understand health correlations and et cetera with those things. So we've done a lot of different tests and talked to a lot of different people. You're going to see the Oligoscan start to show up as a tool that lots of people are starting to use, partly because I'm talking about it, literally telling people,
you need to check out this thing. So you did a lot of these, you ran a lot of these tests at the conference for people.
Right.
What did you notice? Like, are there any notable things that you saw that?
What's really interesting and exciting, because just so you know, I mean, the results of the tests are private with that person and done with the practitioner, but they often will come and talk to me afterwards. And I would say ubiquitously, people come to me and they're like, oh my God, I had no idea about a particular deficiency. But when Erin, the woman who works with us, explained to me the health correlations associated with that deficiency, I was like, that's exactly it.
Oh, so it was lining up with their experience.
Exactly. Even if she was able to even correlate it with specific things that happened in their life, where they grew up, certain things that, I mean, really, they're like, wow, it really, really is. I've not heard one person say, oh, that didn't make any sense to me. Yeah.
Right. Right. And so you would say that the Oligoscan is instead of something like a hair tissue mineral analysis, like you would actually, or might you use it maybe in conjunction with and look at different, because you're kind of looking at different statuses in a way, right?
I personally think, and from the people that I know who are using this, who've used lots of other methods, detox people who've used a lot of other methods, I think you're going to see this is going to become it's really the state of the art.
Yeah.
It's really the state of the art. Yeah. And partly because you can do it and then you can do it again. You can do it, so you can watch a needle moving on a particular toxicity, over time.
And so how long typically does it take to move the needle, or does it really just depend on the individual?
Well, this woman that I told you about who started taking the minerals in May, she she noticed the difference just from May to September.
Yeah.
So, heavy metals take a while.
Yeah. Well, they do. And people who go, and you see the consequences of people going at them too aggressively with all this, the EDTA, is it? And I mean, sometimes you just have to reduce the load, but it's a very harsh, very difficult to tolerate process for people.
Exactly. And that's, now we get into all the Herx, responses and all of that. So again, I really recommend, if people are going to do acute detoxification, they definitely do it with somebody who is very responsive to their needs.
Right.
And you don't have to suffer.
No, it doesn't sound like it. And it sounds to me, even in a situation like that, that a product like yours would help to balance things out a little bit while they're going through a more aggressive detoxification. Like, I wonder if the symptoms might be a little less pronounced.
And I really don't know.
I mean, honestly, I'm just speculating.
I honestly don't know. And the people that I talk with more are the detox people that I'm talking with more are talking about shifting their whole concept from acute protocols to more long-term, gentle.
Yeah. Well, the people I've spoken to who've gone through the aggressive protocols, I would say would probably for the most part agree, because even the acute protocols go on for a very long time.
Exactly.
right?
And
So
then
it's
as
not
soon
a
as you're
week.
done with them,
You're
as soon as,
detoxifying.
yeah. So again,
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think that, and we were talking about this before the podcast, that there's an art to reintroducing to the body, to making sure that the body has on hand what it needs to replace the removal of these heavy metals or whatnot. You know, it's going to, you know, nature doesn't like a
a
vacuum,
vacuum, right?
right?
Exactly.
And part of the reason why the heavy metals are so problematic is because they occupy sites that should be occupied by trace minerals that would perform a function, and yet instead you've got a mercury or a lead molecule there
Iron, right.
that's not performing the function and blocking it on top of that. So it's almost like you want to make sure that in circulation you have all these other elements as you're removing the unwanted ones to kind
Yes,
of
and
come
yeah,
back into play.
yeah, and you really helped me see this displacement piece, and because of that, I'm absolutely agreeing with you that that is really important.
Mm-hmm.
So to during a protocol where you are acutely or aggressively removing heavy metals, to infuse your system with all the full spectrum of beneficial minerals so that they can take up those receptor sites. That really does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, I think that I can't take
You're
credit for that
brilliant.
concept. It was given to me, it was gifted to me by another practitioner who actually I'm going to connect you with. But yeah, so the last question that I have for you, and then I'm going to let you go, is do you feel that where do you feel EMFs are coming into this? Because non-native EMFs, like I feel that non-native EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, which is part of the toxic soup that I think we're all forced to exist in. And if we are electrical beings, and if minerals and trace minerals are the spark plugs of life, and our bodies are being bombarded by non-native electromagnetic frequencies day in, day out. I don't know if you've talked about this or thought about this at all, but is there an idea that by helping our body to be homeostatic, to be balanced in minerals and microminerals, is there a possibility that it could somehow give us a little bit more resilience, if you will, in a world of that is filled with these non-native EMFs?
Yes. So it's a really interesting conversation, and I'm going to tell you that I've been gifted with a vision, some sort of download about this. So the thing about these minerals, these plant-based minerals, is that they change your vibrational status
Mm-hmm.
in your physical body. And not only physical, all the different levels of your body, auric, energetic, vibrational status of your body. And when you follow the science, as I said, I ended up studying quantum mechanics and quantum singularities. You actually realize that it's actually true. So this download that I was given when I was really researching, I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually true. So think about our bodies, and our bodies are depleted of minerals. And so our vibrational, our energetic, our electrical status is like a light that's dimmed. Okay.
Yeah.
And now that light is also being bombarded by all these EMFs, these other vibrations and things. And it's making it even harder for that dim light to shine.
Yeah.
So who knew that literally just taking plant-based minerals could allow my light, the vibrational, energetic, at an atomic level in my body, below cellular, well below cellular, actually allow those processes to occur and create homeostasis that then continues to build out into cellular operation, the mitochondria, ATP generation, cellular operation, et cetera, on and on and on. And now my auric body, my vibrational footprint, is actually able to repel or hold a
Almost like
pattern.
holding its own charge, right?
Yes, holds its own charge
Yeah.
that then actually expels those EMFs. Do you
Yeah.
see? And actually, and this happens not only on an energetic level, but it also happens in terms of consciousness. So this actually affects people's ability to hold higher levels of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're in processes of working on trauma or working on emotional issues, and we have kind of aha moments, this actually helps us to hold the vibration of that aha moment for longer, so that then we develop neural pathways for it. So that, do you see
Yeah.
how these are all connected?
Yeah, I think like the way as you're talking, I think that what it really boils down to, and I think for some people we may be moving into the woo or whatever the case may
Yes,
be,
for sure.
and that's fine. But I think that, and so for some people they kind of can't go there. But I think that if we bring it back to what you said initially, which is that what we're doing is we're enabling the cell to operate better, more efficiently, and be more like, bring in the good stuff, get rid of the toxins, and therefore just be able to function better, then everything else is going to move downstream. Your brain's going to work better, your heart's going to work better, like everything's going to work better. And so if your belief stops at, I just need a heart that pumps better and a brain that works better, great. That's awesome, because this is going to help that to happen. And for those people who are willing to go a little further and say, well, we are vibrational beings, we have aura, we have energy. Again, that person can take it there. But on the EMF front, and what I was kind of after, and I think you basically are saying this, is I'm not very willing to say, well, we're just going to repel EMF. But if we've built enough resilience in our own system, it's a little bit like the minerals, right? That are the heavy metals that are occupying a receptor that you need to have something else there. It's almost like if your electrical charge is strong enough, you may be less susceptible to being impacted negatively. And I mean, it's not going to be full protection, but maybe it just provides us with more resilience in the face of all this stuff.
There's two pieces here. One, there was a man who was a scientist who was tasked to determine how to keep astronauts in space without having them get cancer, because they get a lot more radiation when they're in outer space. And guess what he determined? Humic minerals.
No kidding.
When their system was fully infused with humic minerals, they were fine.
Well, that's a statement right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then another piece is, I was on a longevity panel with probably 6 different people, and each person was kind of coming from a different modality or different perspective. And it was so interesting because during that panel, by the end of the panel, the moderator said, "So it's the minerals, right?" And everybody went, because everybody said, well, this, they'd ask a question, the person would say, well, my thing does this, that, and the other thing, but without the minerals, it doesn't work. So really, it's the minerals.
Yeah, it's even peptides. I'm sitting here thinking of peptides and bioregulators. It's going to come down to, if your mineral balance is off, those things will not be able to work their magic and I talk about this a lot. You've got to prepare the terrain for the advanced biohacking strategies to take hold. Exactly. And you can't get too much more foundational than minerals. So
right.
All right. Well, listen, I know that your phone's been ringing and we've gone a little long here. So is there anything else you would like to share with people, Caroline, before we say goodbye? And, we can definitely have another conversation on another day. I think there's lots more we could talk about.
Well, you and I just want to say it's an absolute pleasure to talk with you. And I know we've been wanting to get together for a long time. So I so appreciated that. And I look forward to many more conversations with you, Nat.
Likewise.
And of course, people can come and look we didn't really talk about our products, which is totally fine. Really, my main message is get your minerals and get them in a very bioavailable format, and take a look at plant-based minerals.
Well, let's talk about, well, hang on. This could be a bit of a long goodbye. Like you do have, I mean, to me, it was like I'm looking in the background and I can see your two products, the two beautiful bottles sitting there. And I think we would be doing people a misfavor, a disservice by not saying that, never present a problem without a solution. And at the expense of sounding like an ad, this isn't an ad, but this is where your journey took you, and you have created two products to really speak to this, to what you're talking about. There's a fulvic acid product, a fulvic product, and a humic product. And that is the product I had my parents take. And one of them looks black and the other one looks clear. Both of them have no taste. It's probably one of the easiest supplements anybody could ever use, but maybe just if you want to give yourself a plug, like let's talk a little bit about the solution to the problem here before we let people go.
Yeah, the main thing that I want people to know is if you're taking a pile of pills, a handful of pills every morning, mineral supplements, stop taking them. They're not helping you. And try B minerals, because the beautiful thing about B minerals are, first of all, they taste like water. They provide all the mineral supplementation you need. And they are 100% bioavailable, which means that when you drink them, they don't require any digestion. They by the time they hit your stomach, they're already starting to be absorbed and in some places utilized by your body.
Amazing.
So that is why they helped my health so much in even a 2 months time span, because they are extremely bioavailable. And not only are just the delivery mechanism that B minerals is, but again, remember that your body is evolved to utilize plant-based minerals.
Okay.
They are the most natural form. This is Mother Nature's technology for mineral replenishment. So if you can do nothing else for your health in the year, in 3 years, I recommend taking plant-based minerals.
Okay. And just for the audience, are there any additives or anything else in there? Or is it just?
It is minerals and water. And we have the beauty of what we do is that our method of producing them is extremely gentle, which maintains the high electrical charge of the electrolyte component of them, which is another reason that they're so powerful. And also because they're not processed with any chemicals, they have no flavor.
Love it.
And that's just, I've taken a lot of Chinese medicine, all the powdered drinks and things with flavors. It just makes it less bioavailable. I mean, I know a lot of people they like drinks that are flavored, but then your body has to digest it.
Yeah.
So then you lower the bioavailability.
And your liver's got to process it and whatever it is maybe. Okay. So there's two products. There's electrolyze and there's, what was the other one?
Microboost.
Microboost is the humic.
Correct.
And electrolyze is the fulvic, right? So you take them together.
And you take them, we call taking them together the advanced set, meaning that's the best supplementation you can take. The reason that they're separate is you can use them separately. Let's say you're a big athlete or you're going to go out and work in the yard and you're going to do a lot of hot, sweaty work or something. Then you might take a little extra of the electrolytes, because that's really kind of that electrolyte supplementation. There's more to it than that, but that's the simplest, easiest thing people understand. And the humic, which is the microboost, that's more about detoxification. It works really, really well with hangovers. I have a dear friend who she never drink alcohol because she couldn't sleep and it gave her really bad hangovers. Her husband's German. He really loves to drink alcohol. So I said, well, why don't you try this? She took it, slept like a baby. She's like, oh my gosh, you've changed my life. Now I'm gonna be able to drink with my husband. Uh-oh.
Well, her liver won't be thankful. I mean, I can make an argument for both products for drinkers, right? You need the electrolytes. You're going to need the help from the humic to remove the toxins as well. So so you've got them independently so that people can kind of amp up. Is there such a thing as taking too much?
The only thing that can happen if you took too much is you might have a Herx response from the microboost. But You know, we're all so mineral deficient. I mean, it would be hard to really, I mean, unless you drank a whole cup of it or something, which I certainly hope nobody would. You only drink, if you take both of them, you would take half an ounce a day. So it's
Yeah.
it's a very small amount. So, yeah, so that's what I recommend. The advanced set, take them together. People are like, oh, I don't want to buy two products. It costs the same to take them both than if you just wanted to take one, because if you take one, you take a full cap, and if you take both of them, you take a half cap of each. So
And you may as well get both sides of the coin. I mean,
it really makes sense. If you were going to only take one, you would take the microboost because it does have some fulvic in it.
okay.
Which it only just has that so that it keeps things in a certain pH range when the fulvic is there, because remember, it can change its charge. It's a really cool thing. So anyway, take the advanced. We do also have a capsule called Electro Boost. If you travel, it's a really good tool to have in your kit bag, because you want to take trace minerals, these plant-based minerals, every day. It's not something you take and then stop and take and stop. You take it every day, because you're infusing your system in low levels, these very bioavailable trace amounts that your body knows how to utilize.
Yeah,
So,
I love that you've got the capsules for travel, because I'm going to be traveling quite a lot in the next little while. And I was sitting there going, how am I going to get those bottles in my bag? But I think I'm going to have to get my hands on the capsules.
absolutely. I'm going to get those to you.
All right. Okay. Well, listen, let's let you go and get on with your day, Caroline. This has been fantastic. And as we said before, we're going to be doing this again. So why don't you let people know where they can find you? And also, I know that you're offering practitioners to reach out to you who might be interested in learning more about the OligoScan. And you've declared yourself the ambassador of the OligoScan for the foreseeable future.
So feel free to reach out to me. You can just send an email to me at info@beamminerals.com, and I will see the message. If you're interested in either OligoScan or also using Beam Minerals in your practice as a practitioner, I love to work with practitioners. We've got lots of ways to do that. If you're a consumer and is interested in purchasing Beam Minerals, just go to beamminerals.com, and you can use Nat's code, which will give you a 20% discount off.
Yeah, the code is NAT20. We kept it nice and simple.
Yeah,
so
it's just NAT20. If you forgot that, you can also just contact Tony in our customer service, and he'll get you hooked up with her code as well. So yes, we didn't even get to talk about so many other things. We'll have to get together again. Thank you so much for having me.
It was a pleasure. I'm so glad we finally made it happen, and we will absolutely have a follow-up conversation. This is just the first.
All right. Take care.
Caroline.
Bye-bye.